Hello and welcome to Law and Order SVU here on FANVERSATION. I am Yael Tygiel. That's Taylor Gates. Hello, Taylor Gates.
Hello, Yael Tygiel.
Hello. This is season 25, episode 2. I can't believe we're in season 25. Yeah, this episode is called Truth Embargo. We'll talk about that in a second. Before we jump in, if you are in a situation where you need help, please reach out to RAINN. Their number is 1-800-656-4673. 1-800-656-4673. That is RAINN, RAINN. But what does 4673 spell, Taylor?
It spells hope.
Yes, that is correct. Facts. High key.
Embargo.
All right. If you've never enjoyed an episode of SVU, consider this your content warning. This episode does deal with a lot of serious stuff, not our usual kind of serious stuff, but other serious stuff. Look, I'm gonna harp a lot on hygiene liners, so consider this your content warning.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. God. Yeah.
If you can't sit through our off-color inappropriate jokes, then this show's not for you. Moving on. We have people live with us in the chat. We're back to our regular day and time. Danny, Doreen, Taylor Strickland, and Deanna are all here live. Welcome. We're happy to have you. Taylor Gates. Oh, Alexa's also here live. Taylor Gates, what did you think of Truth Embargo? Also the name.
I appreciate SVU starting these conversations, honestly. Like, I know that sounds silly because they didn't handle it perfectly by any means. But the fact that they took the risk to try and talk about it, I think, I don't know. I think, at least in this case, I appreciate it more than them ignoring it because it's a fine line, right? This is propaganda at the end of the day. When all of the like BLM movement and George Floyd stuff was happening, they responded in a way that was like, I don't know, like it's really good that they're trying, and then sometimes they handle it really poorly. You know what I mean? I think this one was better-ish than usual. Like I said, not perfect by any means. Lots to discuss, lots to talk about, but I kind of appreciate that they at least took the risk and tried, because it's probably easier to not try with topics like this, if that makes sense. And then there was also a lot of funny lines, which I loved. So I will give them credit for attempting a very difficult conversation because it's a real thing, and I feel like we haven't talked about it a lot on this particular show. So.
I love your perspective on this. I think that you're right. It is smart of them to not shy away from these topics. I think that they approached it and went, we want to talk about this, and then handled it not good.
Yeah.
To be fair, they have in previous episodes and seasons handled it worse.
Yes.
So it wasn't.
At the end of the day, it's propaganda, and you can tell in this episode specifically that you are reminded of that. Like, you can still love the show. I love the show. We talk about it every week, but you have to reckon with the real world things of it, and this is not the real world. They tie it up in a neat little bow, and it's not a neat little bow situation in real life, you know?
I hear you. And Deanna in the chat says they tried.
Yeah.
Totally. There was a moment where Benson says, I know you don't trust the system, but I want you to trust me. And I burst out laughing.
Yeah.
You are the system.
Right. Girl.
Oh man. Yeah, okay. So let's start there so then we can have some fun. Because I think that I think the way that it was handled, specifically like just in a narrative way, I think it was handled wrong in that Brooke and Natalie and their concerns should have been at least approached early on.
Yeah.
Because Natalie's entire defensiveness when talking to the cops, was odd, and it wasn't clear why she was behaving that way. And honestly, like, I was like, oh, she's a teacher and this is one of her students, like she knows them. And then I was like, oh, she's a lawyer, and
You
like,
want to share my theory?
yeah. And they're just all of these, every time she like was behaving odd, I went, why? What was your theory?
This is a dumb question. Were they roommates or were they roommates?
Girl, those were lesbians.
That's what I thought, but you never know on the
No, it was very clear when they talked about their honeymoon.
Oh yes. Sorry. Because I was like, I'm thinking of vibes, or is that just me? Because I always pick up vibes.
Girl, those were very, very gay women.
Yes, sorry, silly question, but they were living together, and when you have two women living together, I always think one of them is bad news because of theater tricks. And so I was like, the girl had something to do with it. Like, I thought we were getting female perp, and that was her. I really did. Or like, if not her, she like set it up or something. Because I was just like, if you have two women living together, that's the theater tricks theory. You know what I mean? So that's what I anticipated. Because I also, they're acting a little weird. I don't know. There was something there. I was like,
so
off.
Okay, I'll say this: had they been roommates, totally. But because they were, how did you say it? Roommates? Hilarious.
You're right. I'm sorry. I watched it yesterday, and then there was so much shit that happened in between that I like.
Yeah, to be fair, like them being a couple was clear at the beginning only.
And then not really.
Because then they barely interact the rest of it.
Okay, that's maybe why I was like, what is happening? Yes, okay.
It also, like, it just was not Alexa the chat says that twist might have worked better.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like they behaved so oddly as the case was being as they were investigating, that it was unclear what their issue was. And then once you get to them in court and we understand what the issue is, that was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And had we known that information early on, the rest of the story would have made more sense and been more interesting.
I also don't think that we needed a specific instance for her to connect with, because it felt kind of stupid. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real thing that happens, don't get me wrong, but it felt so like narratively convenient in this situation. I was like, you've never talked about this kid before. Like, all of this stuff about her family just felt so inserted for the plot. And I'm like, I don't think you need one specific thing. Like, you can just care about racial justice. Like, it doesn't have to be that your brother you shop with. Like, why did we need that?
This is why when Natalie is like, you arrested these kids, how do you know they're guilty? I was like, oh, so she's a lawyer. Like, oh
yeah.
At no point do we know what she does or what, like any of that.
Yeah.
But also, I agree with you, the idea that this all stemmed from guilt over her brother, but reminded me of earlier in the episode with what the hell was that stupid kid's name? Travis Butler, when they were like, what if it was your sister? I'm sorry, you caring about women not being raped should not be dependent on having a sister.
Yes. Not to go too far, but I don't want to lose this thought, is this episode made me miss Andre Bauer, rest in peace, because this felt like this would be a perfect case for Ellis. This was last name.
Baird Ellis.
Yeah. I just feel like this would have been such a good case. And we had someone else like being the defense attorney, but it just felt like such his case. And it made me sad that he wasn't the one trying it, because I feel like he would have been perfect for this.
Totally. To be fair, I think that the defense attorney he had was great.
Yes, agreed. It just like made me miss, because I think that was a good episode. Like, that was a really interesting episode. I forget the name of it, but I remember it vividly. It's with him and the like pianist in the elevator. Like, I actually think they tackled it in a pretty interesting way. That was like, I don't know, like good for SVU, where this was like a little bit less good, but I don't know, the concept of it, of like how race impacts that kind of thing, I don't know. I feel like that was a good example of them actually doing it pretty well.
Daryl in the chat says that disagree with Taylor. If they were just woke for the sake of it, I would have rang wrong for me. I think that you mean I see that we needed the connection to the brother.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So here's the thing. I think what was missing for me was that I feel like, not to get on, you know me and my soapboxes, but there's a concept, right? Benson says that her priority is healing, which to me says we should be talking about restorative justice, which is an amazing concept that I think I think would have been interesting to discuss in this episode. And again, had the women, the victim and her fiance or wife, you know, explained earlier what the issue is, and maybe even suggested they wanted restorative justice, would have given us an interesting story that would have talked about these things. And we didn't necessarily at that point need, you know, this personal connection, because just as a human being, seeing that there are systemic issues, seeing the system is broken, and going, this is the solution that I might be open to.
And it just felt like integrated really weird and kind of uncomfortably for me, honestly. Like that situation like wasn't about you, babe. Like that was about your brother. You know what I mean? And it felt a little bit, the way it was written, the way she was talking about it felt very like centering herself.
Yes.
That's why I think it rubbed me wrong. Like maybe not the concept of it, but the way it was written in and the way she was talking about it. That's why I don't think I really vibed with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but
that's fair enough that like, yeah, that's fair enough that it's a thing that could have spurred that in her character. Like,
sure. I personally don't think that you need to have a personal connection to want to fix something.
Yeah, but this is a procedural SVU. Like, they do be writing stuff that's like pretty clear cut sometimes. Like, and that's okay.
Deanna in the chat says if we saw her brother in a photo somewhere and had some reaction, yeah, that would have worked. Also, if they somehow mentioned him in the banter at the beginning, that would have worked.
Random feeling is why I didn't like it too, because I was like, okay, you're like plugging it. I don't know.
Literally, when she started the story, she goes, "My parents were." I went, "Wait, what? How? Why?"
Yeah.
Are we getting to why your parents aren't here? Like, is that no? It has nothing to do with your parents. Why were they mentioned? It was very weird. Yeah, it was odd. I also
any seeds or leave any breadcrumbs or foreshadow at all. It was
Yes.
all exposition at that exact moment, which is like, okay, they threw it in because they needed it to be clear why she cared. Is why it felt like is what it felt like to me.
I agree. But I don't want to take away from any of the performances, so let's give some actor shout outs. So Natalie was played by Romina Dugo, and Brooke was played by Keely Miller. Mason Carter, the defense attorney, who I think did a really great job. I think he did a really great job, was played by Robbie Williams. To be fair, I was like, Robbie Williams is in this episode? And then I Googled it and I was like, not the same Robbie Williams.
Yeah.
Travis Butler, this kid. Travis Butler is played by Tommy Nelson. Jay Watson was played by Mikey Cooper, and Crispy, who is my favorite character of this episode, was played by Kevin. Let's talk about Tommy and Crispy. Doreen says we have a repeat offender. Doreen, who is our repeat offender? While you tell me who that is, let's talk about Crispy. Because this scene, he's the fence for the smash and grab thieves. I would love to know more about this, because it seemed like the smash and grab gangs or whatever there's an issue. These are things that keep happening, and the only reason SVU got brought in is because somebody was assaulted on, or really they were brought in because the employee was groped. And then we found out that there was somebody who was assaulted. So anyway, that it's like we forgot about why and how this whole thing is happening. This group of people who are just going around doing smash and grabs, and why they have one fence named Crispy, who seems to me, he seemed like he was the like maybe ringleader or something, seeing as how he's the one fence that they all come to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was weird, right?
The whole group was a ride. Like, wow. Gang was.
Doreen says that Travis Butler was our repeat offender. I'm looking it up. He was. Nicely done, Doreen. And the episode he was previously in was Producer's Back End.
Oh.
Yeah. The other thing that I think was really interesting and missing from this episode, especially with this group of smash and grabbers, the robbers, Travis's argument was that they were doing this to put food on the table. And at some point, Benson sees that they're children, right? Like early on, when the employee of the store says that she was attacked and it was a kid, he seemed really young. And then later, when they are arresting everyone, she's like, they're young. And then when they break into this precinct, she's like, don't shoot them, they're kids. And yet, when we go to the story of what happened to Natalie, she's like, he's 18, he's an adult.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to throw it back to she's having Elliot Stabler's last episode PTSD. Elliot Stabler shot a child in that precinct, if you remember correctly, and that is why he left. And she's like, we're not doing that again. We are not doing that again.
Thank you for that reminder, because I definitely was like, this feels, it feels like somebody went, because when Finn yells at, I think, Velasco, he's like, do you want to end up on YouTube? I was like, oh, so we're saying don't hurt anybody because we could get caught for it, not don't hurt anybody because they're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
Daryl in the chat says that is exactly why she said that.
Yeah.
And Doreen says smoked vibes. Nicely done, everybody. I did not catch that. You're all right.
Yeah.
Alexa says, or because she shot that BX9 kid. Wow, everybody is pulling. I was like, this feels silly.
I think it was like, just because it was in the precinct again for me. I was like, oh, we cannot go down this road again because that ruined her life for several years.
You're all making excellent points. I think there was a missed opportunity, though, with the idea that these kids were robbing and that they were kids. And it reminds me almost of like when we first met Ellie Porter, Noah's mom, and she had to be reminded that Ellie was trafficked and was a victim herself. It reminds me of that, where like she has forgotten that, you know, sometimes kids turn to crime for a multitude of reasons. Anyway,
some of those reasons were stupid.
You mean the idea of live streaming your crimes under your name?
Get a Gucci belt. Enough.
I just don't understand why you would live stream under your name. You know what I mean? Like, it's your name and you're live streaming a crime.
Some of them had masks on, some of them did not.
He took his mask off to try on sunglasses. I'm going to say this. I'm not condoning theft, but steal it and try it on at home.
Right. Just take it and figure it out later.
Right. Take a bunch and then try them on at home.
Sell them on eBay if they don't.
Right.
Come on, guys.
You're going to fence it anyway.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work for you, you're going to fence it, right? That was the whole point of Crispy, who is my favorite character.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Mess.
Okay, let's talk about the hygiene liner, because this is key.
This was crazy that they were like, yeah, there should be a plot line in this, because any woman is like, no, it's not how that works at all, actually.
Well, first of all, the first thing that needs to be pointed out, Taylor.
Yeah.
What is the number one rule when trying on a bathing suit in a store?
don't take your underwear off.
Thank you.
What the hell, you guys? I don't even try hats on. That's disgusting.
I literally saw the first scene where she's in the bathing suit. And I went, what the fuck is she doing?
Yeah.
Has she never tried a bathing suit on?
Yeah. Yeah. Unsafe behavior. And honestly, I'm scared of what this show is going to teach people. If you are going into stores and taking your whole underwear off to try a swimsuit on, you need to go to prison with these people. You need to be in jail because that is messed up.
That's a biohazard right there.
That is unacceptable. Prison.
I would like everyone who is live in the chat to let us know if you believe it's acceptable to try on.
If anyone says yes, like, we're gonna have to have a longer conversation.
I just was like, I'm not crazy, right? This is disgusting. Here's the thing. For those, I then had to explain to the person I was watching this episode with what the hygiene liner is. For those who don't know, it's a piece of plastic. It is not hygienic in any way at all. It is a plastic sticker.
Yeah.
It doesn't do or protect anything.
And can I just say, it's the most obnoxious things ever because they don't fit the crotch right.
Yeah.
You'll try it on, it'll start sticking to your thigh, sticking every which way, bunching up into. They are the worst things.
They don't make sense.
They don't make sense, and they don't stay on. They're like, oh, like it fell off. Yeah, they always do. Even when you're trying to wear on.
I guarantee it fell off when she put her leg through the leg hole. Yes. That's when it fell off.
Stuck to her thigh and it hurt, and she had to rip it off, and she got a bunch of little hair stuck in it, and it ruined her day because trying on swimsuits is already not fun, and we had to add that to the mix, and it's hell. Okay, it's awful.
It's literally a sticker.
Yes.
And so, you know, when like you go somewhere and you have a name tag and sometimes it doesn't stick to the fabric of your shirt. So imagine that in the crotch of a bathing suit. It doesn't always stick.
Never sticks. I would dare to say it's terrible.
It's not hygienic in any way. It is a piece of plastic. Now, moving on. This is the kind of shit we discuss on the SVU podcast. And I'm sorry to have to talk about this with you, Taylor, but there was no DNA found during her rape kit. And yet there was DNA found on the liner.
Right.
How? I want to understand how.
Yeah, because she wouldn't have like showered after.
No.
That can erase it, but
my question is, where did he finish?
What the hell were you doing on that liner?
Did he finish on the liner?
I don't know. I don't want to know.
I very much do, and here's why. Because during the defense, the lawyer Carter says that he suggests they manufactured the DNA evidence. And my question is, let's say they did. How did they get what? Because I'm assuming the DNA that they found. I made an assumption as to what piece of DNA was found on the liner.
Yeah, as you do.
The question is, how did? Let's say Carter that Benson manufactured it. Where did she get?
Right. Go into more detail about how you think that would have transpired. Okay.
The fact that Carisi objected, had I been Benson, I would have been like, go on. How did I manufacture this? Where did I get his jizz?
Yeah.
Daryl in the chat and Alexa both suggest that it might be hair.
If it was hair, they would have said it was hair. Right? You know what I mean?
Doreen says, don't make me think about how the DNA got on the liner.
If you're saying DNA, if it's hair, you're just going to say hair. If it's blood, you're just going to say blood. If it's jizz, NBC doesn't let you say that, right? So you would use other words.
NBC lets you say semen.
But what?
NBC lets you say semen.
That's what I'm saying. But yeah, DNA is like another word for that in this case. If it was hair, blood, whatever, we would have said hair, blood, whatever.
All right.
In my opinion.
I agree. I also look, I'm gonna harp on it because that's what I do on this show. How was there no DNA collected during the rape kit examination of her body?
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was on the liner.
These are all good questions.
In terms of science, I'm just trying to understand.
I just know when they were writing this episode, they're like, oh, we really did something with this penny liner twist. And it's like, yeah, on the outside, but if you think about it for more than 3 seconds, it all falls apart. You know what I mean? It's a clever idea, but it doesn't really work.
I love the idea, honestly. Yeah. I think that the idea that apparently men don't know that about this liner in our bathing suits, I find hilariously fascinating.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that idea. But
me too.
You're right. It doesn't work when you think about Doreen says he's a kid. An inexperienced kid. I think what she's saying is that he may have, I'm assuming, finished too fast on the liner and therefore didn't get to
see the logistics of that. I don't
know. This reminds me of one of my favorite episodes where I think you weren't actually on the podcast at the time. But we spent a good 20 minutes trying to understand how semen landed on someone's thigh.
Yeah, but it's true. Like, you got to think about the angles.
No, but the girl was dead, and it was a question of whether she died before or after, and the show did not choose to discuss it.
Seen Anatomy of a Fall, I feel like we're doing the Anatomy of a Fall, but like with bodily fluids right now, which is really quite funny.
Anyway, all right, let's talk about the Maddie of this situation.
Okay.
Here's why. At the end of last episode, I don't think I said it on our podcast, on our after show. I know I said it at home, but last episode, the first episode of the season, very much felt like an episode of organized crime in the way that it ended. And the story was left open. And the fact that the case is continuing to not only be in the background, but affect allegedly Benson's behavior, so much so that Carisi second guesses her and then she accepts being gaslit. But also we have this FBI agent who shows up and the story is continuing. I feel like all of a sudden season 25 is changing from a procedural show to what organized crime is.
I don't agree though, because we've had these things happen before with the like Epstein type case, with like the models and the gym and whatever. I'm like sorry on the details, but we had that happen. We had the BX9 bullshit. So I feel like we have a lot of times recently, and I'm not saying I love it, but I feel like this isn't super unprecedented because we do have like a case of the week and then this like bigger case being sort of a through line. So I don't think we're like changing structure. I feel like this has been going on. I don't really like it, to be honest with you. It's fine. This one is like less offensive to me so far than the other ones. Like, I hated the other ones a lot more. This is at least like tied to Olivia's character, and it's not like really super prominent in every episode, so I don't really mind it, but I feel like they have just been doing this all the time, and I don't really understand why.
I think my biggest problem with the way that they're doing it is, I mean, first of all, I don't like that last week's case we were like, nah, we'll get to this. I didn't like that. But I also feel like the problem with doing it this way, as we've seen, is that sometimes stories don't get resolved, or we are building things and then the showrunner changes and we abandon storylines.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work for a show like SVU where, remember that time when we were building towards her having a drinking problem? Remember that time when Barba got threatened, like literally threatened
By
by
the time
some guy?
McGrath was abusing his kid.
Right. Like
Yeah.
all of these storylines popped up and didn't go anywhere. And that I think is one of the biggest problems with doing that on SVU, which is a show that not only do we as viewers expect to be beginning, middle, and end for an episode, fine, a two-parter, but that means the next week we have to two-parter. Or, some of us randomly like to turn on USA Network on Sundays and Ion on Saturdays and watch episodes here and there. So if I can't do that, you kind of, it takes away from the magic of the show.
Yeah.
I wanted to just say something also. Deanna said in the chat, cough, more women detectives cough. And I agree. So does Doreen. I think that if you look at last episode, we introduced a new detective who I would love to see join our team because she seems to have been competent.
Well, that's another thing is we introduce all of these guest characters, all these side characters. And it's like, maybe that's realistic, but it doesn't really serve this show. Like, why are we investing time in these FBI people, in the person last week, if they're not going to become full-fledged people? Because now we have all of these detectives that we don't know at all. Like, Bruno has gotten barely screen time. Velasco's barely gotten screen time. He's been here for a while. Not that he's like my favorite, but why are we spending time on people that are like not going to matter to the fabric of the show? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree with you. I think that Bruno has become like as I love the character of Bruno, but he is just there to be jokes and he's very funny. Deanna in the chat asked the question, where did Churlish go? She just vanished totally. We liked her at the end of last season. She seemed great and then she disappeared. Velasco is, I think, one of my least favorite additions to the team. And like we even had episodes last season, I think it was, that tried to get us to like him more. And I was like, nah.
He just doesn't add anything new and different. Like, he's very much a carbon copy of the archetypes, the stock characters we've seen a million times before on this show. And it's annoying because it's like Kat, not to keep harping on Kat, but I will for the rest of my life. So actually I don't apologize. And I'm not going to say this is the last time I'll do it. But she added something really new and a fresh perspective. Muncie even added something fairly new and a fresh perspective. When Nick Amaro was on, he was like a little bit falling into the traps, but he at least had like a different background and could add some of that kind of stuff. And I think that Velasco has the potential, but like they are just so lazy about the kinds of characters they write. Like, he's Elliot and Carisi combined for me. And I'm so sick of seeing the same people. I want someone I've never seen before that adds a different shade or perspective to the show, because it's all filtered through the same thing and they aren't learning that is boring to everybody.
I agree. I think also the idea that we have Benson and all these dudes and the fact that they, again, this episode are like, is it possible that you're taking this to, you're thinking of Maddie, you're thinking of something else? I do not appreciate everyone talking down to 1, the woman, 2, the woman in charge, and 3, the woman who's been there from the beginning.
Yep.
She's the only person who's been there from the beginning.
You can absolutely think about 2 things at once. Like, just because she still has this thing that she's thinking about doesn't mean she's not focusing on this case. Like, she's a woman. She can actually think about more than one thing at once. Like, maybe you guys can't, but I know that we as a female species can have a lot going on in our mind at the same time. So
I just feel like I just feel like it's disappointing what's happening. And I hope that we get to a place where there's a reason for it. And I think that's my biggest struggle with things like Velasco or whatever the fuck the deal with McGrath is. Like, it feels like you're building to something. And now you have shown us that you have chosen to do this show where you build stuff. and then you just let it go and it just disappoints. So like if everybody is kind of second guessing her, making her second guess herself, then that needs to lead to something. Perhaps her being like, if you don't respect me as your leader, leave the team.
Yeah. And it's just like crazy, like going back to McGrath, like he's there to be an antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
This is a show about literal rapists and killers. Like, I'm pretty sure that they could just be the antagonist. Like, I really don't think we need one inside of our squad, essentially. Obviously, not part of the squad, but you know what I mean in terms of that. And if we do, the reason that we had him, I feel like, was to be the foil for Garland. And so the fact that we don't have Garland anymore, why is he sticking around? Because he was supposed to be the one that pushes back on that and showing the internal issues that the NYPD has. Well, that's no longer a thing because you fired Garland.
Right.
It's like, why is he sticking around and he's not? That was the whole point of his arc. It's just frustrating. And it's always the people that, like the very obvious people that go. It's the women, it's the people of color, it's the LGBTQ people. And that's so irritating and disappointing.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that he doesn't make sense to still be there because he doesn't add anything to the show.
Yeah.
And I yeah. All right, let's move on. Taylor.
Yes.
It's time for your favorite segment. Best lines.
I have so many. So if you have any, you should probably go first.
Okay, I have a few. My first one is, we out here getting our group discount.
Hell yeah. Love that.
And then this line, because it made me laugh, which was watching the screen is better than being on one, which I find hilarious watching a TV show, having them say that.
And then being on screen right now.
And then also I was like, disagree. And then this is the one that I think might be our t-shirt winning, and it was NYPD always responds better after it's too late.
Yep. I said, get them.
That is the most iced tea sentence Finn has ever said.
Yeah.
All right, hit me with your lines.
That gun's been passed around more than little Nicky at his baptism. Hilarious, also a little bit wrong sounding.
Yeah, so literally as that sentence started, I was like, where is this going? Mm-hmm. And the truth is, I imagine, and I'm guessing here that in the writer's room, that was originally a much lewder sentence.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, ooh, a little gross. Why is Clark Kent here? Like that. One of the only smooth brains to pull off his mask.
I like that one.
When she was talking about it, just the delivery of this line, he had pimples. He was a teenager. Like the absolute disgust in her voice was so funny to me there. I don't know what that one was supposed to be. I mistyped something there. We're on the food pyramid. Can I find a Gucci shirt? This one was like, I thought it was funny, but also like it feels a little bit ableist, like narcissism is a learning disability. I don't know. It was funny, but also I don't know that we should have said that.
Agreed.
He'd be live streaming from prison if we didn't take his phone. So true. If you ever want to walk the streets again without an adult diaper on, I quite enjoyed. This one I actually thought was powerful. Like, not a funny line, but a good line was police have their own form of brutality. I thought that was a really good case to make there. And finally, this is the first time I've had a case blow up because of tailoring. I thought it was pretty funny too.
Nice. I love those. Those were all wonderful.
Yes.
It's time for our shower thoughts.
Oh my God.
For our friends who listen in the shower, I actually wanted to talk about restorative justice.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I thought this would be the appropriate time.
Period. It always is.
So for those who do not know, restorative justice refers to an approach to justice that seeks to repair harm by providing an opportunity for those harmed and those who take responsibility for the harm to communicate about and address their needs in the aftermath of a crime. So, for example, in our case here, Natalie would have wanted to sit down with Jay and discuss how they would like to resolve this issue and what would best work for them. And I think that there's a show that used to be on CBS that went on to OWN, I believe, called All Rise, and they did a fantastic episode about restorative justice. I believe How to Get Away with Murder also did an episode about restorative justice, and I don't recall if that one was good or bad, but I do recall that they did it.
It exists.
It does exist. So definitely look into restorative justice. I think that that is an interesting concept, and I think that this episode would have beautifully dealt with that, and they chose not to.
Yes, I agree.
I think Alexa in the chat is suggesting, maybe I'm misinterpreting, that your shower thoughts should be about the jogging scene.
I have to say, it was a great scene. I also love it. I'm a hoe for when we start off with a song, like a real song that's not just a score. Like, one of my favorite examples of this so vividly is Manhattan Vigil. They played Norah Jones's Waiting, and that's how I discovered that song. And now she's one of that's one of my favorite albums. But I don't know, sometimes they use music in a really good way, and I think they used it really nicely here. And also, yes, she was very sexy, and so we should probably be talking about that too, is that she's a very attractive woman, and I felt like I needed a shower after watching her do her little thing out on the streets.
I'm going to have to agree. I think that I did enjoy very much what she wore while jogging. I think she looked fantastic. But back to your point about when the episode starts with music, one of my favorite episodes, which is Agent Provocateur, also has that at the beginning with the song.
I love it. It's always intro that hits.
Amazing. So those have been our shower thoughts.
Yeah.
I love that we do that for our friends in the shower.
Me too.
So good. What else do we do here? Oh, it's time for the segment we always forget about. What did we learn?
I actually have one.
Oh, hit me. What'd you learn?
Well, first of all, I learned that the writers don't understand panty liners, bathing liners. They don't get
hygiene liners.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Different than a panty liner.
Yes, but also it's whatever. They're stupid. But I actually learned what CART stands for, which is Child Abduction Response Team, which I found interesting. He said, "Oh, join our CART." I said, "What are you literally talking about?" And then they answered the question, thankfully, and I was like, "Oh, so interesting." I learned that acronym.
What did I learn? I learned nothing. Daryl in the chat says, "I indeed learned about those liners." I'm glad you did. Thanks for being our dude in the chat. Alexa lets us know that no mention of Benson and organized crime, but Randall, Stabler, D. Norris is really good. Yeah, so we're meeting more Stabler brothers. Deanna in the chat says, "Never take off your underwear when trying on swimsuits."
I hope to God you didn't learn that though, Deanna. I hope you already
I think she's just giving a fact for people to learn.
But I was like, I mean, I guess if someone learned it here, like at least you guys know that now. But I really hope that you have not been going bare ass trying swimsuits on.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, what did I learn? I'll tell you guys what I learned, and I'm sorry. I learned that I can't keep watching organized crime. I just don't. I didn't watch last week. I didn't watch this week, and I don't want to. And I'm sorry. And I know I said I would do it so you all don't have to. I don't want to.
And you're real for that. And we all accept it and allow it.
Thanks. I was taking one for the team, and I'm tired of taking it.
And now it's time for the team to take one for you.
Daryl the chat says, "Fair enough, Yael. We thank you for your sacrifice." So funny. You usually watch them in batches, I say. That's so funny.
I can see that being a better experience.
You guys are just so funny. I appreciate how much you let me shit on that show.
It's not for you. It's not for everybody.
It's not for me. The truth is, I never was a mothership person. I really didn't care for Criminal Intent. Trial by Jury was disappointing. LA was awful.
There's a new one coming soon.
Toronto?
Yeah.
I think it started.
Oh. Well, interesting.
But what's interesting about the Toronto one is, from what I understand, is it's Major Case, which is the same squad as Criminal Intent.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, no, it hasn't started. February 22nd. Thanks, Daryl.
I might give it a try, see if I like it.
I'm just an SVU girly.
Fair. I'm just gonna, like, I tried organized crime. Like, I've tried most of them. I just haven't really enjoyed them.
It surprises me that you're open to trying new things.
Yeah.
Well, this episode was something. I think my other big problem with this episode, just to wrap it up, is at the end, he's open to making a deal. And it's unclear what the deal is. And not just that, Jay comes to ask to make a deal, and instead of like giving a reason of why he wants the deal, he confesses. And I know that Kreese is supposed to be a good guy and whatever, but like his lawyer should have been like, don't do that, because the DA could turn around and go, you just confessed, so I'm not going to give you a deal.
Right.
You get the deal before you confess. Or that would have been the perfect moment to call Natalie in.
Exactly. I feel like the episode lost steam at the end, honestly, and it was not due to the performance, because he was a good actor, but the writing, I was like, we've hit the climax of this and it's not really tying. It does. It needed to have Maddie there, or not Maddie, sorry, Natalie there, or else, because it didn't hit as hard without that.
And just the biggest question left hanging at the end of this episode is, what happened to Crispy? Right? Like he's sitting there while they barge in.
Yeah.
Did he get arrested? Did he just walk right out? How did all of them get in? That's the other thing. How did all of those kids get in to break? There are so many questions in this episode.
Really
How did the DNA get on the liner but not inside her?
Yeah.
Friends. All right. That's it for this episode. I'm so happy we're back. As a reminder, next Sunday, we will not be doing the show on Sunday. We'll have some other time to do it. When that will be is unclear, but we will. So make sure you've subscribed here and on wherever you listen. Here being YouTube. Make sure you've subscribed wherever you enjoy our show. That's it. Everyone's worried about the sergeant in the chat because he's in trouble.
Yeah,
he was overwhelmed.
He loved his job, so
seriously. Ugh.
He probably deserved to get fired.
Damn. All right. Until next time we talk about SVU. Oh, next episode looks so good. You don't watch the trailer. I believe next episode has David Krumholtz in it, who you may remember from Wet.
Okay.
So I'm very excited to see where that goes and what that's about. So Taylor, until we do this again, where can everyone keep up with you, and what are you up to these days?
Yes, you can find me still on Twitter at @Elpham_Ann. I'll be there until it dies, which may be soon. I'm getting still on Instagram at Taylor_Gates_, and I write for Collider. I've been doing a bunch of Sundance reviews, so if you are curious, some of the good movies and some not so good movies at Sundance this year, you can look at all of my Collider reviews and read my writing if you'd like.
Amazing. I am Yael Tygiel. I'm on Instagram at Yael Tygiel. That is YAELTYGIEL. Next Sunday, instead of here, you can find me and Felicia Michelle, our third co-host, in the Saturn Awards live pre-show. We'll be doing the red carpet live from the Saturn Awards on Electric Now, which is a free app that you can download on whatever platform you use to watch or whatever device you use to watch things. So your phone or tablet or smart TV or Roku, whatever you want. Also, I said it before and I'm going to say it again so that I'll hold myself to it. I'm launching a Bookstagram account. I just have to pick a name. And if you are someone who would follow a Bookstagram account, then DM me on Instagram and I'll send you the names I'm between and you can help vote. Why not? Also, Danny in the chat says Melinda Warner was on OC. I did see that. I watched a clip. Yeah, we miss her. That's all. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.